Where to go, everybody? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please. Which one?
Mr. Arcuri? Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, there I am.
Mr. Coyne? Mr. Bova?
Here.
Ms. Sessi? Here. Mr. Core?
Here.
Mr. Mottola?
Here.
Mr. Karam?
Here.
And Mr. Price? Okay.
And I'm here. Just
Mr.
check.
Tolia?
Thanks, Sue. You have in your packet approval, our draft February 11, 2019 minutes. We already did the November ones back in February. If someone would care to move the minutes. Thank you, Dave. So second. Thank you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. We have a resolution for the award of professional services, which I'm going to turn over to Dick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under agenda item number 4, you have a resolution for the award of professional services contract to F&W Forestry Services. Mr. Wayne Tripp is their local agent from down in Herkimer. If you recall, back in the early 2000s, we prepared the authority a forest lands management plan. 5 of our larger, we own a lot of land, but 5 of the larger parcels comprise over 2,200 acres, including the Black Creek Reservoir lands. Quite a bit of that land is forested with various types of stands, softwoods and hardwoods. Since 2006, when the last plan was completed, at a cost of about $12,000, we've done 3 sales, I think I said 2 here, and we currently have about $147,000 in the timber account specific from those sales as a dedicated set-aside account. At this point, several harvestings have taken place. Also, there's been some invasive species, both hardwoods and softwoods, have become evident in the area. And the DEC has tightened up their regulations for timber harvest, like creek crossings and things like that. So it is time to take another look at the plan. We do propose F&W, that Mr. Wayne Tripp is the same forester that did it back 14, 15 years ago. This time the actual plan would be $16,575. We propose to utilize the timber reserve funds for that. In addition, we also got a quote not to exceed $7,500 to actually blaze and post with our signs the 13 miles of property around all of these 5 parcels. We hope to have some of our own forces do that. We're going to be out there with them, so we got a per mile quote for that work. But if you did it all, it would be $7,500. So what we're asking for today is the approval of the hiring of F&W Forestry for a fixed cost of $16,575, and then an estimated not to exceed cost of $7,500 to complete those 2 tasks. As soon as the weather dries out a little bit, we'll be able to get out there, and we would anticipate by late summer having the plan in hand, and if we needed to do another harvest fairly quickly, we could do it this coming winter. So.
Okay, will you be doing a survey of the potential harvestable timber?
Yes, exactly. We get a complete by species inventory, all of the typical timber information.
Bruce moves it.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any further questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Dick. And that pretty much takes care of the capital projects report.
Provided an update in the email.
Yes. Thank you. Finance, Jim?
You have, in your packet, I think you have 3 months of financials.
In the committee reports section.
Right. So take a look at that, at those reports, and if you have any questions, you can call me, email me. At the end of March, we are down a little bit with consumption, maybe 2 or 3%, but Revenue is actually up compared to budget and to last year, so we're in pretty good shape. Cash flow's a little down, but that's expected. We make a lot of payments out at the beginning of the year, and then we recover over the next several months. So everything is pretty much as scheduled. And also, we just completed our audit for the year. I know the audit committee members got a copy of the audit. We're going to set up a audit committee meeting for the auditors to go over the audit and the findings that they had during the audit. And then they'll probably, if you would like, in the past, they've just come and given a 5-minute presentation to the full board. So we're hoping to set that up soon.
Great. Any questions for Jim? Anything from you, Bruce?
Nope, looks good.
All right, Jim, thank you. We don't have to vote on that report, right?
No.
That,
Yep, I have a variety of updates. I'll try to get through it as quickly as I can. Excuse me, the largest topic going on right now, I think most of you are aware of, which is the fact that the Blue Pavilion is looking to do something with their water source. And it seems very clear that their intention right now is to connect to us, which would involve running a fairly large pipeline from the eastern portion of our system all the way to Ilion, crossing over probably around Frankfurt. So the governor's office has taken a strong interest in seeing this. Apparently the governor is very much in favor of seeing a regional solution for your water supply and trying to help out as many communities along the way. And so he's actually asked Commissioner of the Office of General Services, Ronan Castillo, to become personally involved in this process, which she's been very involved in this process. She was here for a meeting about 8 weeks ago. I think Bruce was here for that meeting. It was a good kickoff meeting, and since then we've gone pretty far down the road of exploring it even further. So Dick and I and Phil at times have had meetings with the state from the Empire State Development and Environmental Facilities Corp to talk about potential financing. Skylar has shown some interest. I don't want to speak for Betty necessarily, who's on the town board there, but they did at least a survey to gauge the interest, and the results were fairly positive. About 75% of the responses said that they would be interested in seeing that. Just Friday, Dick and I and Phil met with the town supervisor of the town of Herkimer. They're showing some interest, and some other outreaches going on. So May 1st, we're going to be having a fairly large meeting that will include a variety of officials from the state government, from the DEC, from the health department, from Empire State Development, Environmental Facilities Corp. Pretty much everybody that needs to be at the table to try to start making decisions. I've also reached out to our bond counsel to get a start on a potential draft amendment to our enabling legislation, because it seems pretty clear for us to change the footprint of our service territory. It has to be done statutorily in the legislation. So our bond counsel at Norton Fulbright is taking a look at that. Hopefully we'll have some determination back from him fairly quickly. But as I said, the governor seems to be fairly excited about seeing something like this occur. And we're hoping that funds will be coming fairly expediently through a variety of programs or through other means, the state revolving fund, et cetera. So we'll keep you posted as that moves any further, but obviously a large project like that with all these different moving pieces would certainly have to come to this board for a whole variety of decisions, as well as each of the individual town boards. One of the open questions is for Ilion to come on, would they become a bulk user through a master meter while they do the improvements to their distribution system? Or would we take that over sooner, as long as it was a pot of money to continue doing those upgrades that we've determined need to be done before their assets would be at an acceptable level for us to take over? We've made it pretty clear from the start that we don't want any of our customer base to be paying for the upgrades in their system for the work that has to be done, to bring it up to a level that we consider to be on par with what we're dealing with here, the rest of the service territory. So we'll keep you posted, but there will be a big meeting on May 1st, and by the next meeting in May, I think we'll have a little bit clearer idea as to what the final scope of this is going to be, who's going to be at the table, which towns may decide they want to be served by it. Then we can start getting cost figures and formation of water districts and things like that can start to get underway. our water supply permit would have to be amended. There's a whole variety of things that have to happen, but it appears we're on a fast track right now, so we'll try to get more information back to you as soon as we can, and let you all know what the critical decisions are going to be that are going to be coming up and on what kind of timetable. So stay tuned. I'm sure you'll be hearing about more in the news. It's been fairly prominent. Next thing I want to mention is, excuse me, we're still meeting internally to look at two issues that we have discussed a little bit. One would be the potential to move from quarterly billing to monthly billing. There are some issues to be worked out with that. We're talking about it internally at the staff level. Hoping to have a proposal back in time for any rules changes we may do related to the rehearing for the up-and-coming budget, which we typically do by October. We have a draft budget to you folks in August, and hopefully by that timetable we'll be able to figure out whether we have any kind of options for the board to look at on a policy basis and decide we want to make a change or don't want to make a change, or some form of it at least. So we are working on that. The other thing would be this concept that we talked about at one of the committee levels at the Finance Committee, of assuming responsibility for a service line all the way to the basement and how that could work potentially. We talked about it in Finance. The chair, vice chair were there, the treasurer were there, Rocco. Actually, it was Rocco that asked to have this topic introduced to be looked at. Dave, you were at that meeting. I don't remember who else. But we do have, we're working on that too. There's some things to iron out. So as soon as we have any kind of options for board consideration, we'll bring those back to you as well. And then we have the IBM recommendations that were presented to us a little over a year ago as a result of our cybersecurity assessment. And they had a number of recommendations. Part of those required that we were going to need more staff. They clearly said that. We have 2 new hires that started in the last 2 to 3 weeks, a week apart from each other. You'll meet both of them at the May meeting. Bruce has asked that we cover a topic at the next meeting. We'll be fully prepared to discuss, which would be what would happen in the event of a ransomware attack and how we would react to that.
Yes, I had one today. I mean,
Pardon?
myself.
Really?
Office, you know. IT had come take everything out and go clean it up. We'll see what happens. Happened over the weekend.
Oh,
You never know, they're time delayed, so.
A lot of bad actors.
So I just mentioned it happens.
Yeah, and, and it would be a little bit complicated for us, so.
Yeah.
But we'll be prepared to talk about that at the next meeting, and Jim Mack will be here with his new staff members that we'll introduce. One is to do web programming for us, the other is a network administrator, and we'll meet them both next month. The other thing I was going to mention.
I'm sorry, Pat.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of information that can be in executive session?
Yeah,
I would assume
I
so.
would recommend that.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive, yeah, so we'll schedule
We'll
that.
go
for
into
executive
that.
session. Yeah.
I just wanted to clear up with you, Counselor.
Yes, absolutely, thank you. We've also talked a little bit about the fact that Livingston County Water and Sewer, which is out near Rochester, has an interest in using some of our software that we've developed in-house. They've seen demonstrations, we have test sites set up. It seems to be working very well. And both Ken and an attorney from Hancock Estabrook, who specializes in licensing agreements and technology, have kind of offered a draft contract, which we talked about fairly recently at another committee meeting. But the hope is to have a draft agreement for them to look at next week for their board to ratify, contingent on us, and then we would bring that to our May meeting as well, once the test site is up and functioning, they've had a chance to make sure it's working properly. But so far, it seems like the process is going fairly smoothly. So we'll bring that back in May for all of you to discuss and final whack at it as well. And then the last thing I was going to mention was, just last week I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., which is a group called AMWA, which is the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, and every spring they do a regulatory/legislative conference. A variety of administrators from the EPA were there, as well as members of both sides of Congress were there. One of the hot topics is what's going to happen with lead services. The new lead and copper rule is currently being proposed and worked on by EPA to go to Congress. And so the issue is, are we going to be told that we have to replace all of our lead services, or are they going to perhaps just lower the Ashland level for 15 parts per billion down to 5 parts per billion, and if you don't make that, then you got to start replacing them. I've heard some mixed reactions. The EPA administrator that was there talking about that said that we can promise you The draft will be out by late summer, but I can't really tell you what it's going to be at this point. So we're waiting to see, but everybody else across the country is in the same boat, waiting to find out if we're going to be told to start spending money and whipping out any remaining lead services in the system. So we'll know that in a couple of months, hopefully, and we'll keep posted on that. Might mean we have to make some amendments to our capital improvement program. The question is what kind of time frame would it occur?
And the discussions with them was, did they also say there would be any funding available? Deadline or not?
There's some discussion about another infrastructure, a federal infrastructure bill. Nobody knows yet what it's going to be or how big it's going to be. There's a House version, there's a Senate version. They got to get together in committee. The president has to sign off on it. So right now, that's up in the air as well. But one of the reasons for this conference that I went to is for the members of Congress that, and we heard from chairs of various committees. And they're there, one, to tell us what's going on their side of it, but also to hear from us and what the needs are. So there's a lot of lobbying that goes on in concert with this particular conference.
Sure.
And so, you know, they've heard from the largest water systems across the country. You know, when I go to these things, the director of Boston's there, LA Water is there, New York City, Chicago. So they're hearing from the biggest systems across the country. And hopefully they're hearing that at least, and they're gonna have some money available for us. So time will tell, and they have to compete for it, I assume. So we'll see how it goes. That's all I have for now, unless there's any questions from anybody.
Well, when the EPA changes their guidelines and recommendations, do they give you a rationale to go with it?
They're supposed to. They're supposed to be based on science and, you know, medical information.
Well, I'm just wondering if they ever do that, provide that, because I know they change a lot of rules and regulations. We wonder why they bring them down to the levels they do.
Yeah,
And
it's supposed
hopefully
to.
they would provide you some justification.
They're supposed to do that, and whatever they end up bringing forward, I'm sure there'll be some explanation as to why they're doing it. Of course, everybody knows what happened in Flint, Michigan, and that's a big driving factor as to what's happening today. It's unfortunate, but what happened over there was essentially the result of a bad decision.
Negligence
Yeah.
on the part of the people who are running the country.
Bad processes, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, because the science went awry for no reason, and no one knows, and therefore we're all at the same risk. That's not the case at all. So, yeah, if I hear the justification, we'll let you know, but, you know, when I listen to the explanations, all I'm hearing through, you know, between the lines is Flint, Michigan, Flint, Michigan.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
They all feel like they have to do something to say they're doing something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Any questions for Pat?
Do we have an accurate assessment of how much lead is out there in our system? That every laterals, mains, all of it?
We have, you know, we have some estimates. Some of the records are old, some of the records are missing, but it's somewhere between probably 1,000 and 3,000
Yeah.
at this point.
Yep.
Which is quite a change. I'm thinking back 15 years ago, we were talking, and then, you know, this was probably more like 11 or 12,000. Yeah, so we've been whittling away at it. So I'm hoping it's substantially below 3,000 at this point. And then we got money, we did get money from the state that's funneling through the city to do lead service replacements inside the city.
How's that working?
I think it's going well. It's just there's a little bit of a lag between, you know, expending the money and waiting for the funds. And the city engineering office is dealing with the state on this. And so there's paperwork that has to get put together and submitted to get the reimbursements. But I think it's going fairly well. Dick, any thoughts on it? No
This year's
major hiccups
program
that I'm aware of.
Planning's coming up for this year's
Yeah,
program.
and what we're trying to do with that is have the money spent in the areas where the street is already doing the reconstruction, where the city's doing it.
Sure.
So that way the street's already open, there's not extra money for restoration. That way more of the money goes into the actual excavating and replacement of the service than being used up to restore streets and things like that. So the only houses that are eligible for it are gonna be on the ones where the city has chosen to do the streets. You know, you could argue whether or not somebody else might wanna have theirs done, but if you do it with the street reconstruction, you can get more services done for the money. And that's what the city's chosen to do, which I think is, you know, very logical.
Anything else for Pat?
We had a discussion previously about the main breakdown next to the auditorium and stuff, and whether or not we could recoup any money from the general contract.
Yeah.
Is there anything on that?
Nothing new to report just yet, but there has been a claim filed in association with that, which I won't mention here, just an open session, but I think as we get into it with the insurance companies, then, you know, their attorneys will seek to, you know, be able to or anything that may be coming to offset those costs.
Okay.
So rather than using our own attorneys to do that, that's, you know, we pay insurance and they have a battery of attorneys. Now there's an active claim on it, and so I think at that point, our carrier is going to provide their legal staff looking into this.
Even if they're members of our arbitration suit, their arbitration, they can enter into binding arbitration with them
Yeah.
and resolve it that way.
So, well, I think we'll know more about that over the next month or two. I just got a list of sort of interrogatories that we have to provide some information about to our liability.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Any old business? Any new business? Yes, Sonny?
I was up on Pleasant Street yesterday, going across there. I don't know if Dick's been up there lately, but a lot of that fence is down around the reservoir. That old fence is either down already or it's fallen down. So we should finish that,
Yeah,
because it's a big liability.
Along
up there.
Pleasant, yeah, we actually have a capital plan to do that,
To get that
to
done?
get that done with some other repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else on new business? I need a motion for executive session, to go into executive session regarding personnel matters.
I'll make,
Thank you. Second, Frank, thanks.
Yes.